Hello and welcome to the Speak British English live stream. This stream takes place every Saturday at this time, and it's an opportunity for you to ask me any questions you have about British English, pronunciation, grammar, British culture, or anything else that you want to ask me about. If you're there watching now, then please leave a comment. Tell me your name, tell me where you're from, tell me a bit about yourself, and if you have any questions, then now is the time to ask. Okay? So, those of you who have been watching for the past several weeks will know that I like to do a live review of your English. Okay? So, today I'm going to look at a piece of text that someone sent me. This was sent to me a long time ago. And we're going to go through it and look at ways in which we could improve the English. Okay? So let's take a look. Oh, okay. My first mistake. Bear with me a second. Okay, where's it gone? Just a second. Okay. There we go. Good. Okay, so we're going to take a look at this document. So let's get started. So let's look at the first line. So I've already edited this. I did it last week. So let's move on to the second line. So the first line says, as we move forward with the 21st century, globalization is capable of reshaping the world we live in. Okay. Those of you who were with me last week or the week before will remember that I edited this line last week. But now that I look at it again, I see that we don't really need these quotation marks here. Because we're just talking about globalization. There's really no reason for them to be there. We use quotation marks like this when we want to point out that we're talking about the word as opposed to the thing that the word represents. So, for example, I might say, my favorite word is table. Okay? Now here, I'm not saying that tables are my favorite thing. I'm saying that my favorite word is the word table. And so I use these quotation marks, speech marks, sometimes called scare quotes, to sort of separate that word from what I'm saying. Okay? Anyway, so as we move forward with the 21st century, globalization is capable of reshaping the world we live in. Yes, you could have said the world in which we live, but this is fine. The world we live in sounds fine. Okay, so next sentence. Moreover, we can see the term acculturation has become very common due to the small world we live in, comma, people start mixing their cultures, languages, and so forth. Many countries has become a mixture of different cultures, and a very good example of that is Canada, USA, and UK. Those countries has welcomed a huge number of immigrants last year. Some of it, blah, 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 blah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so there's an obvious problem here, isn't there? Okay, the problem is the sentence is too long. You've got about 3 or 4 sentences in here. So you will notice that the writer here is, you might say, trying too hard. Okay, this is common for people who are writing academic work. Okay, this is an academic essay that was written as part of someone's university degree. Okay, now this is true even for native English speakers. A lot of native English speakers who are trying to write academic work, essays and things like that, they try too hard to sound clever and they end up sounding foolish. But for someone who's not a native English speaker, this is particularly problematic. What happens is that you end up biting off more than you can chew. Okay? In other words, you're trying to do something which you're not really capable of doing. You don't have the skills to actually realize your ambition. Okay? And that's what's happened here. So, moreover, okay, something's quit. Okay, never mind. I just got a notification. So, where are we? Moreover. So, yes, people who are writing academic essays like to include the word moreover. It's one of these words that people use to sound clever. Moreover, we can see it's probably not necessary. Okay, you don't really need that word here. Okay, not necessary, but it's okay. So, moreover, we can see the term acculturation. So here, you do need quotes, okay? Because you're talking about the word acculturation as opposed to acculturation. On the other hand, this is a very long-winded way of saying something. We can see the term acculturation has become very common. Well, why not just say moreover, or actually just get rid of the moreover? How about just say acculturation? Just start from here. Acculturation has become very common due to the small world we live in. Okay? Now, I don't know what acculturation means. I've never heard this word before, but when you're writing an essay, you're writing for a particular audience. So presumably his professor, his teacher, knows what acculturation means. But, of course, you could have explained it. You know, you could have said acculturation, which means blah, blah, blah. Oops, which means blah, 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 blah. Okay? Explain what you mean. But anyway, even if we know what it means, you don't need to say the term acculturation, just say acculturation. Okay? Acculturation has become very common due to the small world we live in. What you mean is due to the smallness of the world we live in, not due to the small world. You mean due to the smallness of the world. But also, talking about the world being small is rather imprecise. I don't think it's a suitable sort of phrase to use here. So just say acculturation has become very common, maybe. And perhaps just end the sentence there. Okay? As we move forward with the 21st century, globalization is capable of reshaping the world we live in. Acculturation, whatever that is, has become very common. And acculturation has become very common, maybe. Okay? All that other stuff about the world being small, it's all fluff. It's just not necessary. It's not useful information. Okay? Okay, so maybe this is where he's trying to explain what acculturation means. Okay? Okay, well, we'll just move on to this sentence. So, people start mixing their cultures, languages, and so forth. Well, what's missing from here? Okay, if you know what's missing, then please leave a comment. And I see I haven't got any comments so far. Maybe there's a delay. That usually happens. So if you are watching, then please do leave a comment just to say hello. Okay, I like to know that someone is watching. Okay, it's probably maybe 2 or 3 people out there who are actually watching. So people start mixing their cultures, languages, and so forth. Okay, so hopefully you can see that the problem here is that we need a comma. Their cultures, languages, and so forth. Saying things like "and so forth," I mean, be specific. What do you mean? And so forth. If you just mean their cultures and their languages, then say that. Okay? Or just say cultures, maybe. Culture is a big concept that includes a lot of things, okay? But yeah, and so forth. Don't say that in an academic essay. Be precise, okay? People start mixing their cultures, languages, and so forth. And then we need more punctuation here, don't we? Yeah, so maybe this part could go in the previous sentence. So if we make this a new sentence again, acculturation has become very common. How about acculturation, which is when people start mixing? How about just people mix? When people mix their cultures. Or how about when cultures, languages and so forth, are mixed? Something like that. Acculturation, which is when cultures, languages and so forth are mixed, has become very common. Yeah. Okay. Bit vague. It's not very precise. I see a comment here from Julio Cesar Borda. I presume that's roughly how you pronounce it. Thank you very much for your comment. Good morning to you. I'm in the Philippines, and it's actually about 7:15 in the evening right now. So, Julio Cesar Borda, if you have any questions about your English, then please leave a comment. If you've got any comments about the text that I'm editing, then please do chime in. Okay, do comment, say anything you want, any ideas about how the text could be better. Okay, I want everyone to comment as much as possible, otherwise I get very lonely. So let's go back to what we were doing. So acculturation, which is when cultures, languages, and so forth are mixed, has become very common. Okay, that'll do. New sentence. Many countries has become, well, Julio or anyone else watching, I'm sure you know what the mistake is here. Please leave a comment if you can correct that. Many countries has become a mixture of different cultures, and a very good example of that is Canada, USA, and UK. Okay, we have to stop at some point, okay? We need to put a full stop somewhere. Right, exactly. So Julio Cesar Borda says have. Yes, of course. So many countries have become a mixture of different cultures. And a very good example of that is Canada. Okay, so we've got a similar mistake here. Someone who's watching, comment. What is the problem? Many countries have become a mixture of different cultures, and a very good example of that, is Canada, USA, and UK. Well, what's the mistake there? That's a pretty easy one. Someone tell me what the mistake is. Okay, and we'll come back to that. So let's make this a new sentence. Those countries has, oh my God, same mistake. Same mistake. This is silly. This is basic day one. Okay, this is a mistake you should not be making. Those countries have welcomed a very huge. Okay, if you have some idea what the problem is here, then please leave a comment. This is a slightly more sophisticated issue. Why is it problematic to say very huge? If you have some idea, then please leave a comment. Those countries have welcomed a very huge number of immigrants last years. Okay, so again, we have a bit of a problem here. If someone has an idea of what we could write instead of last year's, then please leave a comment. So those countries have welcomed a very huge number of immigrants last years, some for education and some for work. Okay, again, we need a full stop, some sort of punctuation. All of this led to a mixture of cultures and languages which a very good advantage of being immigrant. All of this led to a mixture of cultures and languages which a very good advantage. So what's the mistake here? Easy. Anyone should be able to tell me what the mistake is there. Which a very good advantage of being immigrant. Well, immigrant is not an adjective, so you really need to say an immigrant. However, this whole sentence is a little bit unclear. All of this led to a mixture of cultures. Firstly, all of this, what exactly do you mean by all of this? You've already said many countries have become a mixture of different cultures. And now you're repeating yourself. Those countries have welcomed a very huge number of immigrants. So really, you must just be talking about this part. When you say all of this, you must be talking about this. Those countries have welcomed a very huge number of immigrants last years. So someone tell me what's wrong with this. Last years. Hi, Warachaya. Nice of you to attend. So I know your English is very good, so you'll find this easy. So please leave a comment with any suggestions about how we can improve the English in this text. So those countries have welcomed a very huge number of immigrants last years. So Warachaya, firstly, why is this bad? What's the problem here? Very huge. Those countries have welcomed a very huge. Okay, it doesn't sound very good. Could you explain why it doesn't sound very good? Very huge number of immigrants last years. Okay, someone tell me how we could change last years, make it sound better. Some for education and some for work. All of this. Okay, how about just this? Not all of this. Just this led to a mixture of cultures and languages, comma, which, and what's the mistake here? Which a very good advantage? A very good advantage? How about just advantage? Okay. Now, obviously, the mistake here is which is an advantage of being an immigrant. Well, this is unclear. In what way is it an advantage of being an immigrant? Okay. I really don't know what you mean. But maybe we're going to find out as we read on. Now, there's a big problem here. And this is very common for people writing essays. And not just foreigners, also native English speakers. And that is repetition. The problem is largely due to the fact that when a student is set an assignment, they're given a word count. Okay? So your teacher will say, please write an essay on this subject of 2,000 words. And a lot of students think that their priority is to write 2,000 words, whatever those words may be. And they think that as long as they get to the word count, everything's fine, they're okay. But the word count is really just a guide to tell you how much information and how much detail is expected of you. If you just write the same paragraph 100 times so that it adds up to 2,000 words, that's unacceptable. So simply repeating yourself in order to meet the word count is really is not acceptable. Hello, Spore Drive. Well done for using the expression chiming in. That's excellent. Okay. So yes, you're repeating yourself, aren't you? Those countries have well, blah 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 blah. So a acculturation, which is where cultures, languages, and so forth are mixed. So you say that, and then you sort of say the same thing here. You know, you're just repeating yourself. Okay, so Warachai says, I think huge is extreme, so adding very is repetitive. That's exactly right. So yes, it sounds very bad to say very huge. A huge number. Those countries have welcomed a huge number of immigrants. And what about last year's? Someone, give me one word, one adjective that means what this writer is trying to say. Okay. Anyway, if you can do that, that's great. And we'll move on. So yeah, he likes using this idea of referring to the word rather than the thing itself. So occasionally the words biculturals and biculturalism are used. I think he probably means bicultural as opposed to biculturals. So occasionally the words bicultural and you see what he's done here is he's put the quotation marks around the whole phrase bicultural and biculturalism. That's wrong. You see, what he should have done is this: bicultural and biculturalism. Okay. Also, this is a minor point, but in the British writing style, we use single quote marks like I've done here. We only use the double quotes when it's a quote within a quote. So, for example, I could say something like, he said, my brother said, I don't like you. Okay, something like this. So I'm quoting someone, and he, in turn, is quoting his brother. So he said, my brother said, I don't like you. So it's a quote. There's a quote here within a quote. Okay, but Americans would do it the other way around. They would do this. Okay, now it's a minor point. I really don't care either way, but that's just happens to be true. Okay, now let's look at these comments. So, yes, Spore Drive says Oxford Standard on quotes. Yes, I suppose you're probably right about that. I can't remember the names of the different systems. Let me just look at Oxford Standard for citations. My computer's going a bit slow. Okay, never mind that. So, Julio says year. I know what you're talking about. Let's have a look. So, yeah, okay. So, those countries have welcomed a huge number of immigrants last year. Right. So, if you say last year as opposed to years, last year really means, for example, right now is 2022. So, last year would be 2021. Okay. So, maybe that's what he means. Maybe he means last year, i.e. 2021, Canada, the USA, UK, etc., welcomed a lot of immigrants. But I don't think that's what he means. In my experience, I think that when people who are learning English say last year's, what they really mean is recently. Okay? i.e. in the past or last few years or something like that. So Warachaya says, can we change last year's to before? Yeah, in recent years, yes, exactly. In recent years is an excellent expression to use here. In recent years or recently, in the past few years. Can we change last year's to before? You could say before, but it doesn't quite capture what I think this writer actually meant. I think what he means is something more like in recent years. Yeah. Okay. And there were some other mistakes that we need to get back to. So many countries have become a mixture of different cultures, and a very good example of that is Canada, USA, and UK. So hopefully you can see that this tense is wrong. And very good examples of that are Canada, the USA, and the UK. Okay, always the USA and the UK. Okay, if you're not sure about why, then please leave a comment and ask me to elaborate on that, and I will. But also here, many countries have become a mixture of different cultures, and very good examples of that. Yeah, don't say things like very good examples. Just say, um, uh, for example, um, Canada, the USA, and the UK. That sounds better, okay? But if you are going to say some examples, make sure that your tenses match, okay? Okay. So those countries have welcomed a huge number of immigrants recently. Okay, some maybe use stronger punctuation. You could use a colon here because you're elaborating on what you mean. Some for education and some for work. This led now. Who has an idea? Leave a comment if you think you know how this could be better. This led to a mixture of cultures and languages, which is, oh, yeah, he's repeating himself. Okay, so, yeah, if you've got any idea about how this led could be changed, just a small change to the tense, then let me know. Okay, occasionally the words bicultural and biculturalism are used everywhere, or everywhere is one word, isn't it? Everywhere around the world. Occasionally, the words bicultural and biculturalism are used everywhere around the world. Okay, that's a little unclear, isn't it? Used by whom? What do you mean everywhere around the world? But not all the time their meaning was well understood. Well, now he seems to be talking about the past. You see? Yes, a lot of commas are missing. His punctuation is terrible. So, but no, was well understood. Maybe he means was. Maybe he's talking about the past. But I think he means is. Okay. Unfortunately, my computer battery is about to run out. I didn't think it would run out so quickly, so I'm going to have to step away from my computer momentarily. Okay, so take a look at this text and see if you can come up with any other mistakes, any other ideas of mistakes. I'll be back in a second. Here I am. Let's plug this in. Okay, good. So, let's see. It is understood. Occasionally the words bicultural and biculturalism are used everywhere around the world, but not all the time their meaning is well understood. It is understood, but not all the time. Okay, I would actually do it like this. But not all the time is their meaning well understood. That's how I would do it. So occasionally the words bicultural and biculturalism are used everywhere around the world. I'm just going to delete that because it doesn't make any sense. Okay, but not all the time is their meaning well understood. Or how about but their meaning is not always well understood. Or how about just understood? Okay. Well, I, for example, don't understand what he means. Okay, so anyway, often in the Middle East, it understood. Yes, it is understood. Right. That's what Elevic means. Yeah, exactly. But now you see he's saying it is understood, but he was talking about bicultural and biculturalism. These are two words. Oh, okay. So they refer to the same concept, but their meaning is not always understood. Yeah, but still, I would maybe say something like biculturalism, rather than saying it, because it sounds confusing to talk about two things and then say it. Often in the Middle East, biculturalism is understood, I need some speech marks here, is understood as half, and again, use singular ones, half for people mixed parentage, regardless of their actual personality. Well, that doesn't make any sense at all, does it? Often in the Middle East, biculturalism is understood as half for people mixed parentage, regardless of their actual personality. Okay, if someone can explain to me what this person means here, then I will be very impressed, because I have no idea, but maybe I'm just not seeing the obvious meaning. So I don't know what to do with that. So basically, for most people, bicultural is known as two cultures, and basically for most people, bicultural is known as two cultures are operative in one person. Basically for most people. So firstly, don't say things like basically. That just sounds very bad. Okay, so Spore Drive says mixed heritage. Yeah, he must mean something like that. Often in the Middle East, biculturalism is understood as half for people of mixed parentage. But what is it? It's understood as half. Half what? Yeah, it's very badly written. And what has their personality got to do with it? Anyway, yeah, starting sentence with basically, that sounds very casual. It's not really appropriate for this kind of thing. You've got to be precise. Don't say basically. Just explain what it is, okay? So, for most people, bicultural is known as two cultures are operative in one person. So how about just say bicultural is having two cultures, something like that. Okay. And then all the other way round, that one person can operate in two cultures, and that comes either by living in the two cultures environment or having mixed parents. Okay, so yeah, the writer's thoughts are a train wreck. That is true. That is true, because he's more focused on the word count than actually expressing any real ideas. Okay, so biculture is having two cultures, sorry, or living, let's say, rather than operating. I mean, you don't operate, you live. Yeah, multi-ethnic. Yeah, he's talking about being multi-ethnic. He's definitely talking about that. It's just often in the Middle East, biculturalism is understood as half. Yeah, okay, it means multi-ethnic, as multi-ethnic for, yeah. I think it just means is understood as having mixed parentage. Full stop. Just that. I think that's basically what he's trying to say. How mixed is mixed? Yeah. Bicultural is having two cultures or living in two cultures. Yeah, okay. So I can see that there is a difference between having two cultures. Like, for example, in London, there are a lot of people whose parents are from India, let's say, but they themselves have grown up in London and they are Londoners. They're British, but their parents are Indian, and so their household is like a little piece of India. So they go to school and they see their friends and they are British. When they go home, they don't speak English with their parents. And their parents really just live like ambassadors of India. So these people have two cultures. They are both Indian and British. It would be reasonable to say that, I think. On the other hand, you might have someone who is really only has one cultural identity, but they move between different cultures because of where they live or something like that. I suppose that's what he's saying. So bicultural is having two cultures or living in two cultures. And that comes either by living, so you see he's repeating himself. And that comes either by living in the two cultures environment or having mixed parents. Yeah, he's just repeating himself. Bicultural is having, so why not just say is having mixed parents or living in two cultures. Okay, that's all he's saying. He's just been very long-winded about it. Okay, I can't quite remember, but I think that your full stop is supposed to go after. Yeah, you see, he's actually added two there. He put one before and one after, which is wrong. So, occasionally the words bicultural and biculturalism are used, but their meaning is not always understood. Often in the Middle East, biculturalism is understood as having mixed parentage. Okay. What he means is, so it's often understood as having mixed parentage, but it is, or it can also mean living in two cultures. That's all he's saying. Okay? That's all he's saying. So, next sentence. Oops, hold on. So, then biculturalism, again, we're talking about the word, then biculturalism can refer to either the academic study of cultures. Okay, so it seemed at first that he was just using bicultural and biculturalism to refer to the same thing. Yes, Elevic says, perhaps the word half refers to how some people refer to biculturalism in casual conversation. Yeah, so he's half, meaning he's a mixed race or something like that, yeah. I think that must be what he means. So, so now he seems to be saying that bicultural and biculturalism are not really the same thing. Bicultural describes a person who has mixed parents or lives in two different cultures, and now but biculturalism is the study of this phenomenon. Whereas originally he didn't make that clear. So here he says, then biculturalism can refer to either the academic study of cultures in contact, or the conviction that recognizing two or more cultures in individuals and society is beneficial. Okay, so by the way, this is a common difference in the British English and American English. In the UK, we will usually use an S in words like this, recognizing. Okay, again, it's not something I care about, but that's, if you're using a spell check that's set to British English and you see a word underlined and you're not sure why, it may be because you've written it with a Z instead of an S. Okay, so where are we? Then biculturalism can refer to either the academic study of cultures in contact, I don't know what he means by in contact, or the conviction that recognizing two or more cultures in individuals and society is beneficial. Beneficial for whom? Okay, Spordry says, the writer's claim about the parents and about the cultures are not well explored. I agree. It has so many levels of analysis which seems hard to follow, at least from the writing itself. Yeah. Another thing that a lot of students do when they're writing essays is they rely too much on quotations. Now, you should use quotations. In fact, your professor, your teacher, it probably wants you to use quotations because he wants to see that you've read the books. Okay, especially if it's an undergraduate degree. Really, the idea is you read the books and then you write an essay, and that proves that you've read the books. The problem is, especially if you're learning English, you're not a native English speaker, is that it can be quite difficult to take a quote and rephrase it, or take that quote and sort of slot it into your own text. That can take quite a lot of skill. So sometimes you see little phrases which have clearly been taken directly from the text that the writer has read, but the writer has not really understood the quote that he's taken, and then it just sounds very strange. It sounds almost like you're reading something that's been come out of Google Translate or something like that. And there are certain words which indicate that, like this word conviction. Okay, conviction is just a belief, but it's a strange choice of words which he's probably borrowed from something that he's read. So then biculturalism can refer to either the academic study of cultures in contact, whatever that means, or the conviction that recognizing two or more cultures in individuals and society is beneficial. I don't know what he means. I really don't. By comparison, monoculturalism, so again, we can use these quotes, that would be better, can mean simply having no exposure to other cultures. Yeah, don't use the word simply. It's completely unnecessary. You're just trying to add to the word count. Can mean, well, is it can mean or just means? Or simply is? Means having no exposure to other cultures, or intolerance of people who are different because of fear, xenophobia, oh, thank you, or assumed superiority of one's cultures, a kind of chauvinism. Yeah. So monoculturalism means having no exposure to other cultures, or, yeah, I mean, we know what xenophobia means, so you don't really need any of this. Monoculturalism means having no exposure to other cultures, or being xenophobic. Okay, that would be more concise. Or maybe nationalistic or racist. I mean, that's kind of what you're implying. Let's keep it simple. By comparison, monoculturalism means having no exposure to other cultures or being xenophobic or racist. I think that's clear enough. This is interesting because it suggests that A, internalized, again, we can use an S, internalized cultures are not necessarily blended, and B, absorbing a second culture does not always involve replacing the original culture with a new one. So this is clearly just lifted from a text that he's been reading. Okay, he doesn't really understand what he's read, but he just copied and pasted it, basically, or copied it out from a book that he's read in the library. This is interesting because it suggests that A, internalized cultures are not necessarily blended, and B, absorbing a second culture does not always involve replacing the original culture with the new one. That sounds like something that he's stolen without understanding it, because I don't see the connection with this previous sentence. Okay. So anyway, classical scholarship on African Americans, for instance. Classical scholarship? What does he mean by that? Classical scholarship. Usually classical would refer to the study of ancient Greece and ancient Rome. Um, so I'm not sure what he means. Classical scholarship on African Americans, for instance, describes movement back and forth between, quote, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two warring ideals. Okay, so apart from this strange use of the word classical, which we can just delete, scholarship on African Americans, for instance, describes movement back and forth between two souls, two thoughts, two blah, 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 blah. Okay, this is good. This is the first good sentence that I've seen. This is a good example of how to integrate a quote into your own sentence. Okay, because it makes sense grammatically between two souls, two thoughts. Okay, so this part is a quotation, and he's managed to put it into his own text. Although I suspect that this part has also been copied from somewhere, because it doesn't sound like it was written by this writer. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, I agree with Spore Drive. The writer needs outlining lessons. Yeah, he has no plan. He has no real argument. But this was sent to me a long time ago. This piece of writing. It was not sent. It's not something done by one of my subscribers. This is something that was sent to me years ago by some student when I used to do a lot of proofreading, and he sent it to me so that I could edit it. Okay, so this is a typical example of the kind of things that I would get when I was proofreading, which is why I stopped doing it, because it was mind-numbing. It's painful to read all this terrible stuff. But doing it now is quite fun. So, researchers may shy away from researching biculturalism because cultural factors cannot be precisely isolated or measured. Okay, that's interesting. Researchers may shy away. Nice use of shy away. So the expression shy away just means avoid something. So they shy away from researching, they'll avoid it. But maybe you don't need from researching, because you just said they're researchers. So maybe just researchers may shy away from biculturalism because cultural factors cannot be precisely isolated or measured. Okay, that's probably true. Indeed, so indeed is another word like moreover and furthermore. It's a word that people like to put at the beginning of a sentence in order to sound very clever. Sometimes it's useful. Okay, I'm not saying that you should never use the word indeed in this way, but yes, it's definitely one of those words that people like to stick at the beginning of a sentence to make themselves sound clever. So, indeed, although one may read about it, being bicultural may be nearly impossible to understand unless one has experienced shifting gears between two cultures in oneself. Okay. Although one may read about it, being bicultural may be nearly impossible to understand unless... I really think that, again, he's stolen this line from somewhere else, and he's just taking a bunch of quotes and sticking them together and calling them his own. This is not a good idea, because if I can see it, then his teacher will definitely be able to see it, and that's not a good idea. So, common misconceptions about bilingualism. Okay, so he's mentioning a new concept here. Common misconceptions about bilingualism plus monocultural politics seeping into education have added to the confusion about cross-cultural terms. Okay, common misconceptions about bilingualism. Yeah, it could be a bit more specific here. What common misconceptions? Well, hopefully he's going to explain that later on. Common misconceptions about bilingualism plus monocultural politics seeping into education. Okay, that's... seeping is a rather negative sounding word. Seeping into education have added to the confusion about cross-cultural terms. Okay. Don't know what to say about that, really. The same with being bilinguals. The same with being what's that noise? Okay, never mind. Maybe you can't hear that, but I think phone's ringing or something. Yeah. The same with being bilinguals. Usually, bicultural individuals are bilinguals as well. So they are practicing two cultures and two languages, and that is affecting absolutely what? And that is affecting okay. That is affecting their personalities and lifestyle. I think lifestyle is one word. So the same with being bilinguals. So I think he should use a colon here, because now he's going to explain what he means. The same with being bilinguals. Usually bicultural and also being bilinguals. No, he means being bilingual or bilinguals if he wants to use bilingual as a noun, meaning a person who is bilingual. But the same with being bilingual. Usually bicultural individuals are bilinguals. Yeah, just use it as an adjective. Don't say they're bilinguals, just say they're bilingual. So usually bicultural individuals are bilingual as well. So they are practicing two cultures and two languages, and that is affecting their personalities and lifestyle. Okay, well, that sounds true enough, although, you see, now it seems like he's just writing a bunch of different sentences which are unrelated to each other. Again, this is common when you're just taking things out of books. So he's got a couple of books in front of him that are on his reading list, and he's just taking anything and sticking it in, and then taking another bit and sticking it in, and the sentences don't really flow. You know, they don't really form any kind of argument. They're just randomly picked out of a chapter in a book that he's reading. So yes, each individual sentence might sound sort of okay, but it just doesn't make any sense within the context of what he's writing. Okay. Hopefully we'll find something a bit better. Coming for a certain culture. Coming for a certain culture. I think he means coming from. Okay, coming for means something completely different. If you're coming for something, that means you're sort of chasing it. Probably because you want to do something bad to it. I'm coming for you. I'm going to get you. Something like that. So coming from a certain culture and living in another culture is not an easy thing. And that's why, okay, I think we know what the mistake is here. And that's why, obviously, but in an academic text like this, you should not use, right, exactly, you should not use contractions. So as Spordrive says, it should be that is why, okay? And that is why sometimes we hear that some people are suffering from culture shock. Okay, and then he's put a comma. Look, you've got to be a bit stronger with your punctuation. You need a full stop there. Don't be afraid to start a new sentence. So coming from a certain culture and living in another culture is not an easy thing, and that is why sometimes we hear that people are suffering from culture shock. Okay, sometimes we hear, how about, and that is why some people are suffering from culture shock, or some people suffer from culture shock. Okay, the term culture shock come when the bicultural individual refused to change or acculturate with the new culture due to the big difference between the two cultures, or the fear from being the new culture. Okay, this is rather unclear, isn't it? The term culture shock, yeah, this writer, he keeps on saying the term or the word, or, you know, just say culture shock. You don't need to say the term. It's just another way of adding words so that you can meet the word count. Okay, it's not good writing. Culture shock well, I guess he means comes when the bicultural individual refuses, or individuals refuse. Culture shock comes when the bicultural individual refuses to change or acculturate with the new culture. Yeah, you don't need to say acculturate with a new culture. Acculturate means to adapt to the new culture, doesn't it? Okay, you've already explained that, sort of. So just get rid of that. Refuses to change or acculturate due to the big difference between the two cultures or the fear from the new culture. Yeah, I don't think we really need any of that. So culture shock comes when the bicultural individual refuses to change or acculturate. Well, in that case, is he bicultural? Maybe when the individual refuses to change or acculturate. I'm not sure. Maybe if he's refusing to change or acculturate, he's not bicultural. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but that it seems to be the case. Anyway, I have to stop in a minute. However, the benefit from being bicultural and bilingual is very important. Okay, I'm not sure how you said however, as if this part somehow contrasts with this, but I don't really see any connection between them. So you see, again, it's just a bunch of sentences which don't really connect to each other. Anyway, however, the benefit from being bicultural and bilingual is very important. The benefit is important. I don't think the benefit is important. I think what you mean is being bicultural and bilingual is beneficial. I think that's what you mean. Anyway, let's move on. Very interesting how, yeah, exactly. The benefit of being bicultural and bilingual. Very interesting. So obviously you have to start with it is. It is very interesting how nowadays we can communicate with each other no matter from where we are. No matter from where we are. How about just no matter where we are? Okay. It is very interesting how nowadays we can communicate with each other no matter where we are. Since we are aware of the different cultures and languages around us, we can successfully communicate with others. Okay, I suppose. I'll do one more sentence. Furthermore, you see another furthermore. Yeah, like indeed and moreover. It's another term that we stick at the beginning to sound clever. And again, it's a useful word. I'm not saying that you shouldn't use it, but it's just funny how people like to use words like that to sound clever. Furthermore, the bicultural bilingual individual is an individual has, well, you see how he's repeated himself. The bicultural individual, just say, the bicultural individual has risen in a certain culture, an unconscious process termed enculturation. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure how this is further to what you've just said, so maybe just delete that. It's like a new chapter, isn't it? The bicultural bilingual has risen. That's a strange choice of words. It sounds like you're talking about a loaf of bread, or you're talking about Batman or something. Batman rises. You know, the rise of the Dark Knight. Has grown up. Okay, the bilingual person has been raised. I mean, that's what he means. Just has grown up. Yeah, the writer loves Latin too much. Yeah, maybe. The bilingual has grown up in a certain culture, an unconscious process. Yeah, I would use a colon here. Anyway, I actually have to stop there. So that's been 1 hour. Sorry about having to run off and get my charger. I hope you found that somewhat interesting. If you would like me to edit your work or review it, go through it the way that I've done today, then please follow the link in the description, share some work with me. It doesn't have to be something like this. This is just an academic thing that someone sent me years ago. But you could write something good, you know, do your best work. It doesn't have to be complicated. It could be very simple. But send me something and we'll go through it next time. Okay. Also, if you want me to comment on your pronunciation, then make a recording of yourself. Use your phone. You don't need to include your face if you don't want to. It can just be an audio recording, but make a recording of yourself and you can share that with me and then we can go through that. Also, if there's anything else on the internet that you want me to talk about, like maybe there's some other YouTuber who has made a video and you want me to comment on that, then share that with me, okay? I really need you to help me because, you know, this channel is still really just growing. Okay, anyway, I have to go. Thanks again for everyone who came and have a good day. Goodbye.